right, traders. Traders, welcome. Welcome to another live study session. My trading poker family. Awesome. I saw someone mention, I saw someone asking, I think that was you, Simon. Was there a session last week? No. And I'm not quite sure why you would think there would be a session last week. But we have sessions we have sessions here once a month, and we have these sessions for life. So these sessions sort of make your membership in this club rather priceless as far as I'm concerned. All right. Kel says, great class yesterday. Making my kids watch once a week forever. Thank you very much for that. Anyone, how many of you caught that? It was about 2 hours, a little bit more than 2 hours or so, but a very informative talk we had yesterday. We had a great time. Yeah. The hamster wheel. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. If you haven't caught that, um, I think that it's imperative that that you watch that, and I'd watch it in its entirety. I don't think that there's anything more relevant in today's world than what we covered yesterday. All right, so do that. All right, all right. So listen, I also remember that I had. Let me grab some charts up here. I conducted a contest on my social media, which was on this play here. Awesome, Carlos. Let me see. Get it here? Good. I'm not quite sure how many of you participated, but I did want to, since the contest is over, I wanted our session today to focus on this. It brings into play so many things that we've talked about, and a number of things that are explicitly um, a part of your trading poker cards. So let me grab my pen here. Kel says he took this play Friday. Awesome. All right. Great. Now, as members of the Trading Poker Club, you should all be familiar with the fact that the 200 period moving average is a very, very key moving average. In fact, of all the moving averages, you could say that that's the granddaddy of them all. This is by far the most important and most powerful moving average. Why is that? Because it is watched by virtually every single market participant in the world. Whether they believe in technical analysis or not, they know where the 200 period moving average is. All right. And so it sort of makes it somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, one of the things I want to make you aware of, just in case some of you aren't, is that the 200 period moving average is more powerful when it is flat. So there can be times when your 200 period moving average is sort of rising gradually or falling gradually, but its greatest powerful position is when it's relatively flat. We see that on the 2-minute chart here of Tesla, where the 200 is relatively, not relatively, that's very flat, making it extraordinarily powerful. All right. Now, The other thing I want you to be aware of is that one of the number one things that I look for in the morning when I'm before the market opens, when I'm scanning my list of stocks, my family of stocks, I'm first and foremost looking for indications of any stock that is opening at or near its 200 period moving average. So I can get indications based on what the pre-market trading, where the pre-market trading is happening. And if that pre-market trading is happening anywhere near the 200 period moving average on the chart, that gets pulled out of my master list, my family list of stocks, into a more refined list, basically, that's going to get all of my attention at the open. See, everything on my list is not going to get all of my attention. So if I were to diagram this I start off with my master list of all my stocks. And I'm looking to cull out of this list in the morning about 5 to 7 minutes before the open. I'm looking to cull out of that list anything that is indicated to open near its 200 period moving average. And so let's say that that's these two. Now, there are other things I look for as well, but we're going to stick with this one today. So these two would get the greatest degree of attention. So therefore, they would be put into a separate list, if you will, of this is what I focus on. I ignore this for the moment. And at the open, I focus on these two because they're indicated to open near their 200s. Why is this? Because my number one play is a surge up or down from the area of the 200 period moving average. There is no other play more dominant for me. There is no other play more important for me. Nothing else will distract me if I have this. All right. My number one play, a surge upward or downward from the area of the 200. Now, I use that term purposely. It doesn't have to be on the 200. It can just be a little bit above, a little bit below, but it's an area. And so you can't ever lose the fact that while the chart is going to show you moving averages as skinny lines, you need to look at them as cushions, if you will, or zones. So the 200 is really more of a zoned area, and the skinny line is what runs through the middle of that zoned area. See? And so this is why I don't want you to be like, well, it was a little bit above the 200. That's still the 200. It was a little bit below. It wasn't touching. That's okay. It's still the 200. Okay. So it's very important to understand. So this is my number one play. Now, what's also interesting about this opening at or near the 200 is the fact that the 20 and the 200 are relatively close together. This is a very, very important key here. You see, as opposed to this, when the two moving averages are close together, you're guaranteed to be dealing with what I call a narrow state. This is not a narrow state, but this is a narrow state. Now, markets vacillate between narrow states. From narrow states, they go to wide states. And then from wide, they go back to narrow states. And then they repeat. From a narrow state, they move to a wide state. And from a wide state, they go back to a narrow state. Repeat. And that's the only thing markets can do. All right? Go from a narrow state to a wide state. And look, we're going right back to a narrow state. Repeat. Now, what you can't know in advance when you have a narrow state, what you can't know is which direction are you going to move to wide? Is the movement to wide going to be up, or is the movement to wide going to be down? You can't know that in advance, but you can know it early. And so this is where that preparatory work, I'm telling you, at the open comes into play. You've got a narrow state. You're seeing the pre-market indication that the stock is going to open just above the 200, and you have a narrow state. Wow. Let's do this here. Now, the odds suggest that the expansion is going to start upward, but you still need to see this really occur. And so I watch, and there's the first painting of green from my 200, and the narrow state. So I see a little bit of green, and I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. If that green continues to grow, I'm going to make it separated so you see the stages that I watched the green. I'm like, uh-oh, this is really getting to what I start. If we get here, I'm going in. Boom. I'm going in before this bar finishes. I'm going in when it is absolutely clear that I have the surge, that the surge off the 200 is here. It's not a little bit of green, that's not a surge. It's not a normal amount of green like this, that's not a surge. This is more than normal. Boom. As long as I can say it's more than normal, I'm in. That's it. All right. Now, I do, as a general guideline, I like to go in somewhere in the second minute of the 2-minute bar because we're dealing with a 2-minute chart here. And the reason for that is that if sometimes when you go in too early, you have still an eternity left in that 2-minute period and anything can happen. What you thought was going to stay there doesn't stay there. So as a general guideline, I tend to wait for that first minute to go by. And my anticipatory entry is going to be somewhere in that second minute. Honestly, are there times where I break this rule? Yes. There are times when I'll go in a little early, and Tesla meets that earlier exception for me because I've got not just the surge from the 200, but a surge from a narrow state. So I've got the double cherry on top of my Sunday, you know? Boom, boom. And so I'm going in somewhere in that bar when it's obvious to me that this is my surge off the 200 and that extra umph that I have from the narrow state is very powerful. And so Um, this is my number one go-to play, and it's what I encourage that you make one of your main focuses as well. Your greatest plays are going to come out of narrow states. Your Another group of your greatest plays are going to originate from at or near a key moving average. So think about those together. Your greatest plays are going to come from a narrow state. Another group of your greatest plays are going to originate from around a moving average. So you've got both here. All right, you've got both here. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is when you get these surges, right? I always want you to be cognizant of what's to the left of the surge. Notice how there's just clear sailing here, meaning clear air. It's only air here. There's nothing, which means that there's no recent past that your surge has to deal with. Look at this stock's decline. Look at Tesla's decline here. All right. Now, if I get a surge here, I've got, look at to the left of my surge. Look at what the surge has to deal with. A recent history that is against it, a recent flow that is against it. So my surge here is swimming upstream. Does this make sense? It's swimming upstream. Now it still can work, but it has a tougher road to hoe. It has a tougher job in front of itself. But this surge, oh no, it has nothing to deal with to the left, giving it freedom. Now, if you look back far enough, there might be something, but we're talking recent history. There's nothing recent history to deal with. All right. And so a lot of traders get into trouble this way. They look to find bottoms in things, right? So stocks dropping. And because they missed the drop, they're going to be cute and try to catch the bottom. But while this is interesting, you can't ignore the fact that it is swimming upstream because the prior stream was downward. So it has a lot to get through. That current to the downside is powerful. And so bottom picking traders should be more focused on what gets me what kind of surge. I should just see what I'm drawing here. Down, 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 down. First up. That's what suckers a lot of traders in. Down a little bit more, down, another up, down, up, down, and then boom, this surge. Now, I'm doing this on top of a chart, so I hope it's not too confusing. But I want to point this out. You, in this scenario that I've drawn out, you've got a surge here and a surge there. This surge has to deal with a recent flow against it. This surge over here, see, this surge has separated itself from that history and has greater odds of moving. This one has greater odds of being temporary and failing. So I want you to get into the habit of looking to the left. All right. Whether you're up or down, looking to the left. All right. So let's line up all of these things. A flat 200, you now know that the flatter it is, the more powerful it is. A tight 20 and 200 together, telling me we're in a narrow state and the next state is a wide state. You can't go from narrow to narrow. You go from narrow to wide, right? And from wide back to narrow. This is how you know what's next. So you know from a narrow state, what's next is wide. But which direction? Well, up, because we opened above the narrow state and the green has grown to more than a normal green. I put all of that together and boom, in the play. And so these are the reasons. And wait, and I look to the left of this surge and there's nothing hindering it. Nothing hindering it. No flow to fight. All right. It's powerful when you know how to put all of those things together. So we got an elephant plus clearing bar surging off the 200, originating from a narrow state. Wow. All right. So someone's saying profit taking with a question mark. Well, what do your cards say about profit taking? Pull out your profit taking cards. You should have 3, I believe. And yeah, so 3 pushes. You got 1. This is a neutral. You don't count that one. 1, 2. You can probably count this as 2 and 3, but if you don't, and then you have 3. Now, Ada, be careful about bars. I use the word push in profit taking for a reason. A push to new profits. So if we count bars, you're doing 1, 2, 3. But if you're counting pushes, there's no push in this bar, right? So a push must supersede this bar, you see? Now you got another push. You pushed higher than the high of the last push. All right, so don't bar count, push count. Okay? Push is nothing more than a burst of new money. You got a burst of new profits. Wow, I got another burst. My pockets just got fatter. That's a push, not a bar. Right. So this is very powerful to be able to put this together and to know every trader needs a go-to play or two or three. You need at least one go-to play. You know how many traders don't have a go-to play? First of all, do you know how many traders don't have a play at all? They just have guesses. They have feelings. Yes, all of them have feelings. They have thoughts. All of them have thoughts. They have guesses. All of them have guesses and hunches. But they don't really have a well-defined play. Most traders don't. This is a well-defined play, a well-defined go-to play, a play that doesn't require that you think, a play that doesn't require that you hesitate, a play that doesn't require that you analyze, a play that just once it forms, boom, you just hit the buy button or the sell button if it's a short and go, no questions asked. A play that requires actually adjusting your size upward. You see, my go-to plays are more sizable than my regular plays, which means that if my regular plays are 2 lots, a go-to play might be 3 lots, just automatically. And what you should do when you have a go-to play is you should constantly monitor it. For instance, that you should collect 20 of these, collect blocks of 20 and evaluate the 20. Evaluate 20 surges off the flat 200. Evaluate that. How profitable are they after 20 of them in a row, right? Or is it not as profitable as I thought? This is the work that you have to do. You might be making a mistake with them. You might realize that it shouldn't be for some reason this is Oliver's go-to play, but it doesn't work for me. The numbers don't add up for me. So now you remove it from your go-to play. But this is the work that you have to do. You have to constantly monitor these things. And yes, it is very possible for this to be highly reliable for me and other traders and not highly reliable for you. That's just the personal nature of trading. You sort of create your own opportunities in this world. There's no set formula that's applicable across all traders. Because in truth, guess who you're trading? Ultimately yourself. And this is why it's so mystically individual in nature. It's weird. And a lot of people have a problem understanding this. Well, Oliver, you're saying that if we learn a tactic from you, it might be good for me, but not good for another? Yes, absolutely. You start with what I teach you, but you start there and you let the number 20 dictate what's true for you because what's true for me may not be true for you. And people have a hard time with this. But if you think of it in this way, it makes sense. For instance, Tesla trades the same way for me as it does for you. It doesn't pick favorites. It doesn't say, I don't like how this person's hair is this morning, so I'm going to trade differently from him than I am from everyone else. No. It trades for Warren Buffett the same way it trades for Oliver Velez, the same way it trades for you. Yet, there are 300 people here between all the different languages, maybe. If I were to give 300, if I were to give each of you 300 of you, 1,000 apiece, or let's say, no, I were to give you 50,000 apiece. and tell you that you're going to trade 20 minutes on this day. You're all going to start the same day at the open. You're going to finish trading at 20 minutes. You have the same amount of money to trade with, the same time frame, a 2-minute chart, and the same stock, Tesla. How many different results at the end of 20 minutes will I have? What's your guess? 300. And so if a tactic were universal, that would not be possible. Nothing's universal, really. This is why it's such an individual game. I'll get 300 different results, I guarantee you. You know? Now, what's the next thing I'm going to cover with you? I want to cover when should I do this? I want to cover why this pullback did not offer likely another opportunity to go long, because normally what starts off strong pulls back and then you get another leg like that. Why did Tesla, after such a beautiful move up, did not offer that? And the key to this is if you get too much of a good thing on the initial run, be skeptical of thinking there's another opportunity. All right, so Kell is saying he lost half of the profits on the initial play, trying to play the moment where it should bounce like this, right? Boom, finding that moment that goes to a new high, right? But when when you get too much of it, you already have it. You see, this is what we're all looking for. But you can get that all in one run, you see? Or more like this. So what's the difference? Do you see it? Look. You see it? You got it all in one run. If this had pulled back here, that's different. You could say this is still getting going. All right? But when you get such a huge run up before a decent pullback, that pullback is going to be profit taking, not resting. And this is what I need you to understand the difference between. Pullbacks that are buyable are not the result of profit taking. They're the result of resting. There's a big difference. Something just starts getting going and pulls back, that's resting for the next leg up. But the pullback from here now is profit taking because the gain is so big. You got to bring this to the point of view of thinking about what you would do after an exceptional gain. If you start to see it going down, you would start killing your play and protecting your profits. That creates an avalanche in the stock. But the pullback here is going to cause some of the traders who bought there to add because they know they've got a decent play now. And the people who missed here are going to come in. It's very different psychology here. You see? So let's go over that again. Nice initial pop, pull back. Oh man, I missed it. Now I'm getting an opportunity to get into this good play on a pullback. That brings people in that weren't in. The people who bought here and now know they have a good play are going to typically add on the pullback. So the number of buyers gets bigger here than it was there, causing the second leg to often be bigger than the first one. But now the pullback from here is different because all of these people have fat profits. And instead of being ready to rush in on a pullback, they're ready to get out on the pullback to protect their gains, which causes a more severe drop. Does this make sense? Everything is psychology. You know? That's all it is. Everything is psychology. And so it's important to understand that. Now, the last thing I will point out to you, this will be a nice little guide for you. All right. There are three different types of whales. So we're really after this every morning. Well, even after the morning too, but specific, but especially in the morning, we want that. Right? But there's another version. You can get it like this. And you can get it like this. This is the one that Tesla did. The brief pause. That brief pause right there. Now look. But all three are whales. What I call whales. But this one confuses a lot of people. But let's go over it. Up, pause, up. Got it? Whale complete. Now, you will not know that you got this version of the whale unless you have traveled a nice distance away from the pause. This is a pause, yes, but it's not anywhere near a whale yet. But as you move further and further away from it, you're thinking like, oh, whoa, I'm so far away from that pause now that I've got my whale. So you only know that it's a whale once you have left the pause in a very decent way. You understand? Yes, a hidden RBI is the name of one of a variety of pauses, right? So it doesn't matter what the name of it is. I mean, there are different pauses, all right? But it's a pause, meaning that it's not a new move. It's not a new high. Look, that's a new high, but this is a pause, right? And then we continue like that. So that's a pause. Okay. Now you have to have gains on each side of the pause. decent gains on each side of the pause. So see the gains and then see the gains, right? You can't count the pause. You can't count an elephant if the pause doesn't have a decent gain before it. So let me give you an example of that. First bar, second bar. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Then see, this is not an elephant. The pause is not in the middle, right? The pause is in the beginning of the move. This pause is more or less in the middle, which means that it has decent gains before the pause. And then it has decent gains after the pause. Elephant, just like the pullback is normally in the middle. Boom, boom, boom. You see, the pullback is in the middle. The pause is in the middle, not down here. So you can't have that pause elephant if the pause is too early in the move. Do you understand? Make sense? Very important to understand. Anderson, I don't know how often they occur, but they occur often enough for you to know this concept of knowing when a move has gone far enough to be skeptical of getting in on a pullback. The pullback is going to be sloppy after the gain is so hefty on the initial run. All right. Powerful. Guys, each one of these little details is a is a is a little but very potent piece of the entire puzzle of trading. What you get here are these little puzzle pieces. And that every time we meet, you put them together. You know, and in the beginning, it seems very convoluted and confusing. I get it. But um, you know how if you have 1,000-piece puzzle and you just start and you have all the pieces spread out on the table, it's like, oh my God. But then you start to work with the pieces and you say, okay, um, this picture, you look at the box and you say, this picture is a beautiful white horse in the middle of running in the middle of a meadow. So the horse is white. Let me collect all the white pieces over here. That's the horse. The blue sky. Let me get all the blue sky above separated over here. And all of a sudden, you start to, you know, dissect the pieces into categories. These are buy things. These are sell things. These are stop adjustment things. These are location things, right? These are profit taking things. And then you start to join the pieces together one by one. And what happens over a period of time is that you start to see order in the puzzle, order in the pieces. It doesn't look like a big giant mess anymore. And this process of piecing things together so that they are cohesive and whole and complete, it takes time. And time traders is what a lot of people don't want to put in. We're just in that, we're in that era, that microwave era where everybody wants to have a gourmet dinner in 30 seconds. And you just can't have a gourmet dinner in 30 seconds. You can have a dinner if you want to call it that, but you can't have a gourmet dinner in 30 seconds. You can't have a complete, powerful, money-making, trading method in 30 seconds. And you can't trade something from theory. You see, you start off with theory, but it has to actually become yours. It has to leave the theoretical part of you. It has to leave the intellectual knowledge. It's intellectual when you get the cards. It's intellectual when you hear it from me here. But it has to be worked with to make it yours. You have to grapple with it. You have to gain experience with it. You've got to trip with it. You've got to be successful with it. You've got to lose with it. You've got to win with it. You got to fall down and get back up with it. And through that process, it becomes not intellectual knowledge. It transforms. It transmutes itself into experiential knowledge. And when the knowledge gets converted to experiential knowledge, it can then start producing for you. You can't trade someone else's experience, even if they give it to you. You have to make it yours. And there's a process. All right? Now, for all of you guys, if you want to speed this up a little bit, you can consider, if you haven't already, joining the VIP Trading Club, which is more of this, more frequent of this. Or here it's once a month, right? And that's only $15 a month, guys. That's 50 cents a day. You can do it for 2 months or 3 months. You don't have to do it forever. You know, invest $30, $45 into your career. Right? But I do need you all to understand that it's a process, and that's the process you're on. It's a journey. And I am not only delighted, I'm honored that you've chosen me to help you walk through that journey. It is not something that I take lightly, guys. It is not something that is flippant to me. All right, I honor your decision, and I hope you see that I honor that each time I'm afforded the opportunity to be with you, that everything comes from my heart and my soul. And I hope that resonates with you. I love you guys very much. Enjoy your holiday. Enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. Remember, we do not trade on Monday. All right. We have an extra day off. Use that day to tighten up, to relax, rest, tighten some things up. Go into the next week knowing what your average loss per trade was last week. Determine tomorrow whether or not your average losing trade last week was too big. And if that's the case, let's work on making that smaller going into next week. That becomes your goal. And let's take this concept. If you trade the opens in the morning, let's take this concept and consciously look for them each and every day off the open. What's opening at or near a flat 200 period moving average for me? You're not going to get it every day, but you'll get it multiple times every single week of your life. Love you guys. You're my babies. Goo goo gaga. Boom.